Hello, hello. Let me know if you can hear me. And if you can, without further ado, we will get going. Beautiful. Awesome, Zabinator. Hello, hippie. All right. Loud and clear. Beautiful. Thank you. Loud and clear in Townsville, says Roseanne. Thank you very much. That's awesome. We can get going, I think. Alrighty. Thanks, Liz. Just going to make sure we've got multi-stream up. What's going on? Yep, beauty. Rockio, Catherine, fantastic. All right, g'day folks. Chris Nitzo, lead forecaster at Weather IQ, and today we're talking about a couple of things. Firstly, we're talking about the system that's going to create a lot of rain for far north Queensland's coastline in the next few days. And then we're going to talk about the an NT low that's creating a lot of rain up in the NT. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, the low pressure system in the Coral Sea. We'll go into depth about that and what it could and couldn't do and why it should and shouldn't do it. But for now, let's quickly have a look at what happened in the last rain event. So, while I've got you, by the way, Fair Income Builds is our major sponsor on the top left there. So, if you are in the market for a shed safe accredited shed, check them out and, support our sponsors if you can as they support us. And if you'd like to support us, we've got a Weather IQ subscription service. It costs $32.95 a year and you get daily forecasts through the wet season and once a week through the dry season, or unless there's any major weather through the dry season. Today, for example, we went through the Queensland Weather Week. We went through the Cairns district, the Townsville district, the Mackay, Southern Queensland, Central Queensland area. We combined them into one because there's nothing going on there now. Top end low, we're talking about that ad nauseum. Northwest WA, we do those ones 2 times a week, Tuesday and Fridays, unless there's any major weather. And the Gulf Cape forecast, we usually do them 2 times a week, unless there's major weather for them. And of course, we talked about the cyclone that we're going to talk about tonight. All right, so if you'd like to support us, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe, $32.95 a year. Not going to break the bank. And if you want access to all of our models and charts, and we've actually got a new tornado parameter in there now, $69.95 a year. All right, let's have a quick look here. Thanks to Weather Watch, some of the rainfall totals that we've seen over the last 7 days. So obviously we all know the Daintree copped the worst of it at the start, and they peaked at around 450, 500 millimetres through parts of the Daintree. We also know that it was pretty localised, right? There were parts of Port Douglas, Mossman, didn't get much, right? Once we went into the Daintree, once we went into the mountain range areas and the gullies and near the mountains, we got big numbers. But it was very localised to that area. Further south in the Cairns district, didn't get much out of the whole event. This is the rainfall over the past 7 days, by the way. Rainfall through the Cairns district, not much, 50 to 100 millimetres. Through the Tablelands, about the same, 50 to 100 millimetres. Babinda, a little bit more than that in that area, 1 to 200. Our low then hit the coast and went inland, and we saw some big numbers out towards Normanton, 200, 220, and then also through Georgetown on the way to Normanton, we saw 200 plus through there. Then the system sort of dilly-dallied about for a day or so in northwest Queensland. If we take a look at what happened out the Isa way, we can see that it created falls in the 1 to 150 millimetre mark through Richmond and areas north of Richmond. There's a very sharp rain gradient through Cloncurry, Nice rainfall through Hewenden. Not much went through the Longreach area, although the Gemfields just to the east got absolutely smacked. And then we went to the second half of the system. Oh, by the way, while I've got you there, one of the things we glossed over, and we didn't even talk about it much here in the... we didn't talk about it much here during the event either because it was dwarfed by all the other things that was happening. But you can see what the Whitsundays copped. They copped a shitload of rain. 300 to 400 millimetres of rain over the past 7 days through parts of the Whitsundays, just inland of the coastline. So, yeah, those Whitsunday folks really copped it. The Burdekin folks, 100, 150. Townsville, 50 to 100, similar to Cairns. And the area up around Rolling Stone, about 100, 150. So this area here was actually pretty hard hit, not because of the low, but because of the convergence associated with the low. So that was pretty interesting. Right, let's get down to the south where we saw the back half, the big event in the back half. And in fact, the biggest rainfall from this whole thing was actually recorded here in central Queensland with 523 millimetres officially. So I'm sure there were heavier falls in the Daintree over a 24-hour period, but over the 7-day period, yeah, big numbers. And you can see the sharp rain gradient. Once we went to Brisbane, very, very sharp rain gradient south of Brisbane. Not much rain at all. And unfortunately, a lot of these folks here near the border ranges really still desperately need a bit of rain. They didn't get anything out of that. Further to the north, we had big numbers across the Central Highlands. And you know what the great thing about this was? All these big numbers, the 200 plus... yes, Aidan, I'll get to you, mate. We're talking... Trust me, we're talking about that. We're just going through the past event, firstly, just wrapping it up. So you can see here that a lot of the heavy rain through the Central Highlands happened in areas that really needed the rainfall. So a lot of the northern parts have had a truck ton of rain this season. The southern parts haven't. Same applies for the Burnett district. A lot of folks in the Burnett district have been missing out, and this time around they got nailed. Absolutely nailed. All right, so that's the end of that event. All right, that system is now out to sea, gone. See you later. The other area that's been doing quite well recently has been the Northern Territory. Catherine, copping heavy rain again today, as you can see on the radar. Plenty of rainfall there. They're already in flood as well, and they've got a low-pressure system that's just mucking around out there in the top end for the next few days. So there's a big issue there with further rainfall through the Catherine district in the next few days, which is unfortunate for them. All right, so that's what's going on there. That's what's been happening so far. I want us to take a quick look at who's getting the rain the next few days, and I want us to focus on the Tully district because the Tully district is going to get a lot of rain. They're going to show us why they're called the wet tropics over the course of the next week. So tomorrow, we're going to see significant rainfall all up and down the North Tropical Coast and the Tablelands. Obviously, still a bit hit and miss, but some pretty significant rain for tomorrow through the district, and with some of the heaviest falls around Palm Island, Ingham area. You can see a pretty sharp rain gradient further south down the Burdekin tomorrow. We can also see widespread rainfall development through the far northern interior tomorrow. As we go into Thursday, we can see significant rainfall continues for the North Tropical Coast from about Rolling Stone northwards, with isolated showers further to the south, and significant rainfall right up through that northern interior, as you can see. On Friday, we maintain significant rainfall on the coastline, significant rainfall through the inland and Cape and Gulf region. So you can see there places like Georgetown still copping a battering over the next few days. Once again, the rainfall that falls inland, it's a little bit more problematic than the stuff that falls on the coast. But this will well and truly make up for the fact that the North Tropical Coast missed out on the last set of rainfall from the cyclone, from the low. And you can see there continuing on into Saturday. Heavy falls of rain expected on Saturday, maybe moving a little bit north of Ingham at that stage for the weekend, and still a couple of showers further to the south. And then as we go into Sunday, we're seeing further heavy rainfall in the North Tropical Coast region, and starting to settle down south of Tully at this stage. But we're also starting to see a little bit of an enhancement around the Mackay district on Sunday of shower activity, and that'll wash out by the time it gets up to the Townsville district on Monday. And you can see on Monday, finally, early next week, we start to settle down. So that's a lot of rain coming for this section of coastline. You can see falls in excess of 200, possibly 300 millimetres. There's even some talk there that we might even get ourselves up to about half a metre of rain through an isolated pocket of that coastline. So there's a lot of rain coming for that section of the state, and hopefully they are ready for it. They should be. It's the season, of course, to see that sort of stuff. So you would hope that they are very ready for it. All right, the next area I want to have a quick look at is that top end, and then we're going to go to the cyclone. All right, so if we go to the Northern Territory, and we're going to see something fairly similar here, slow-moving rainfall that's going to be consistent and constant over similar areas. And you can see here, tomorrow's rainfall expected to be, by the way, tonight's rainfall is expected to be over Katherine. We're seeing that right now. And then as we go into tomorrow, we can see that that rain shifts southwards down through to the base of the top end into the Gregory district. You can see, though, there's still a fair amount falling there through the base of the top end tomorrow. Thursday, we're expecting to see that rain just shift southwards down into the central NT. And you can see further enhancement of westerly flow showers coming onto the Darwin, Port Keats coastline. So there's plenty more rain to come for these regions because the low pressure system that's creating the rainfall just isn't going anywhere. And what this low is actually doing, it's a flow-on effect for Queensland because it keeps driving this northwesterly flow through the Gulf and into far north Queensland. And so that northwesterly continues to collide with the southeasterly, and so that's why we have a continuation of this convergence over the Cairns district, or over the North Tropical Coast, and we continue to maintain significant rain on the monsoonal flow. Even though it's technically not a deep cross-equatorial monsoon, the atmosphere treats it the same way. All right, and so this low, the fact that it's still here, continues to enhance that northerly component flow. So what's happening in the NT indirectly affects what's happening in Queensland. That's why it's important. Don't switch off when we talk about the NT, because a lot of what happens there is either going to happen in Queensland later on or is influencing what happens in Queensland. And in this case, it's influencing what's happening in Queensland. And then as we go into Saturday and Sunday, we're going to see that low begin to shift west in towards the Kimberley. But look at this. Once again, heavy falls of rain, Katherine westwards. And then into Sunday, the expectation of that rain just spreading out a little bit. And once again, as we get to Monday, we're expecting to see a tremendous amount of rain pushing through Alice Springs and Ayers Rock and those sort of areas. Just incredible amounts of rain this season for them. And that's going to be further followed up on Monday with incredible amounts of rain. It's just been an amazing season. And we can see there over the course of just this next week, we're still anticipating 1 to 200 millimetres over Katherine, 1 to 200 generally across the western top end, and we're expanding that right through the western half of the territory and down into the red centre, or the green centre as it'll be at the end of this. So really, that's as I say, I'm just at a loss. It's just an incredible wet season for such a large chunk of the desert regions of Australia. You've got to remember that Western Australia's desert regions have also seen very significant rainfall this season. Most of those desert areas have seen more rain than the Pilbara and the Gascoyne put together. So it's pretty incredible to see where the rain has fallen and how unusually the rain has fallen this season. All right, so that's what's happening until Monday. Now, we're going to go to the stuff you're all wanting to know, all right? There's a Coral Sea low-pressure system. We're seeing evidence of that. We're seeing really clear evidence of that. That's not a hype. That's not bullshit. We are seeing clear evidence that the low is going to form there. All right, so firstly, let's have a look at the official word. The official word on your screen there. You've got a low forming in between the Solomons and Vanuatu sometime over the weekend, probably Sunday, and then we see the low tracking westwards into the Coral Sea. Or do we? That's our first point of issue. So let's have a look at what I'm talking about. Rightio. What we're seeing here is a standard deviation chart of mean sea level pressures. And what we're seeing is where the lows are expected to be. Look for the little L shape on your screen, the little L letter, all right? So what we're looking at here is what happens to this little L letter, and I'm just going to bring this down so you can see the time that we're talking about here, all right? So we're talking about There we go. That should be enough. All right, so we're talking about Saturday there, where we're first seeing the little L shape between the Solomons and Vanuatu. Now, here's our first point of issue. So if the system is forming and it starts drifting southwards, and I'll explain why that's the case. You see this little purple area that shows some southward motion? That will be the end of this whole saga before it even begins. If that starts to shift southwards or south-southeastwards from there, it won't be coming onto the Queensland coast from that point. All right, but that's not guaranteed that it's going to be shifting south or south-southeast at the time. And in fact, the general model average puts the L moving westwards. All right, so there is a chance here that this becomes a non-event before it starts, and you can see that's why we got the purple shading down that way. But there's also a slightly better chance that this is going to be something we'll need to talk about and discuss through the week, next week, and potentially get even ready for. So as we go, we can see here that moving into Tuesday, keep an eye on the time down here, Tuesday, we're seeing more signs and more evidence that whatever's here is moving westwards. But I want you to pay attention to already how much doubt we have in that forecast. Look at how many of the models are pulling the system southeast away from Queensland already. So already this is a non-event for all these ones down here. All right, but the model average approach continues to drive the system into the coastline, or continues to drive the system westwards. All right, so as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, we see that the system continues to, the model average is now split. We now have a split model average, one that has it here, one that has it here, and all parts in between. Do you see why we don't like to jump the gun? And do you see why we don't like to put the coast on alert and show you little squiggly lines of things that could be happening? Because at this point in time, and we're only at Tuesday night here, Tuesday night, what's that from here? 1 week away. So in 1 week's time, the system could be anywhere from just east of Cape Melville to just east of Townsville to New Caledonia, to halfway between New Caledonia and New Zealand. All right, so do you see why we don't like to do squiggly lines this early? That's why. All right, but let's hypothetical this out, and we'll talk about why there's such disagreement shortly. All right, hypothetically, the system would, earliest point of approach to the coastline, to hit the coastline, would be on a Wednesday afternoon or a Wednesday night, continuing on potentially through Thursday, Friday and Saturday. If it doesn't hit the coast by Saturday, there's fair agreement at that point that the system probably won't make it to the coast, will get sheared away, or will duck off to the southeast from there. So our time frames that we're watching is Wednesday to Saturday for a potential coastal impact. But at that same time, Wednesday to Saturday, the system could be hitting New Zealand. All right, so there's no guarantee that it pushes west. Now, let me show you why there's no guarantee it pushes west. Let me give you an idea about what we look for when we're looking for the motion of tropical cyclones. And one of the things on our subscription service we have are what we call tropical cyclone steering winds. And tropical cyclone steering winds are a weighted mean average at different levels of the atmosphere, and we've created a weighted mean for those steering winds. So different strength tropical cyclones have different steering wind layers. And so if we're looking for a strong tropical cyclone steering mechanism, so what we've got here is this mechanism here. So between now and Saturday, between now and Friday, we've got a ridge located around the South Pacific, which is driving a weak trough westwards. So our little low is probably already out here, but not as a low. It's just a weak trough at the moment. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's just this weak little area of convection. That's all it is at the moment. Now, over the course of the next few days, it's going to push westwards. This little weak area of convection that you're seeing out there, Right, that weak area of convection that you're seeing out here, all right, that weak area of convection is what's going to be coming westwards and will eventually form the low. So going back to our thunderstorm steering winds. Right, so what we've got here are our thunderstorm steering winds through the deep layer of the atmosphere. These are tropical cyclone steering winds, sorry, not thunderstorm steering winds. So we do different levels, different levels of the atmosphere. So these are our strong tropical cyclone steering mechanisms. Now, winds. So what we've got here is an upper level low located to the south of the circulation. Now, this is the time frame. I'm just trying to make sure that you've got an image of this. That's better. All right, so I need to make sure that you've got the full image and also the time frame, because we're dealing with two resolutions. I'm working on 4K. You guys are seeing this in 1080. All right, so what we're seeing here is evidence of an upper low through the back end of the week, and that upper low is weakening the ridge that was driving the system west. Now, over Willis Island and through the Coral Sea, there's another ridge. That's going to try and take the system and stop it from moving down here and bring it westwards. So you can see the start of our little low here. All right, that's the start of it. It's very weak, 5-10 knots winds. Nothing dramatic there. So our little low and trough continues to track westwards into the Coral Sea. So it gets here between Vanuatu and the Solomons. Now, we're at Saturday. On Saturday, what we're looking for here, if you look here, there's a ridge. And if you look back here, right on the western edge of your screen, there's another ridge. Now, in between the ridges, there's a bit of a weakness in the ridge, where the ridge doesn't link up. So they don't link up altogether between the east and the west ridge. So here, as we go through the Saturday-Sunday period, the low sniffs out the weakness. They're very smart like that. As soon as they figure out that there's a weakness in the ridge, they dive at it. All right, so it figures out that these highs are not linking up together, and so it goes, aha, path of least resistance is down here and into the graveyard. And then what happens, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as it drifts southwards, the upper trough grabs it, that's the upper trough coming through, and pulls it southeastwards. Now, what happens if that weakness isn't there? And one of the things we know about cyclone forecasting many, many years now is we don't predict ridges very well. All right, those ridges, they're very finicky little things. And sometimes when we don't think they're going to link up, they link up. And sometimes when we think they're going to link up, they don't link up. So what happens hypothetically if they do link up? Well, that becomes a whole different matter, and that's why we have a cyclone coming at the coastline. So if this ridge, so at this point here, if this ridge and this ridge, which is out past Townsville, to the west of Townsville, it's not on your screen, it's just west of your screen. If this ridge and this ridge join forces and there is no weakness in the ridge, that low will not be coming southwards, that low will continue on its westerly track. And then, if we hypothetical that out, let me find a model that hypothetically shows that. No weakness in the ridge, or very limited weakness in the ridge. And you can see here that the upper trough attempts to take the low. See how it attempts? But the low didn't dive at the weakness. So the weakness is still there even in this model, but it's not a very large weakness. It doesn't stick around for very long. So the moment the cyclone sniffs out the weakness and tries to duck south, the weakness is taken over by the ridge here. So the ridge to the west strengthens and gets rid of that weakness. Now, there's still this period just here, Sunday into Monday, where the upper trough attempts to take the system and yank it down to the graveyard. That's the key. So this period here is the key. If on Sunday or Monday, this Monday morning, the system is starting to pull southeastwards, that means this trough and the weakness in the ridge have taken it, and off it goes to the graveyard. Now, what would happen here if the system doesn't get taken by that trough from Monday? What do you reckon is going to happen? The ridge is going to build in strong underneath it, and from here, all the way to the west, baby, all the way to the coastline. All right, that's where we're bracing ourselves for impact. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with there in the eastern Coral Sea. Now, there's one last little piece to this puzzle. You'll notice here on Saturday, there's another upper trough that's amplifying. Another one of these little kinks in the airflow. See this little kink? That's an upper trough. So another upper trough amplifies on the weekend. So if the low starts to move west but stuffs around, so it moves at, say, 10k an hour, eventually it's going to run out of time before this next upper trough creates another weakness in the ridge, and then it'll sniff it out and duck off to the southeast. Remember, cyclones want to follow the path of least resistance. They will not travel directly into a ridge, but they will love it when an upper trough creates a weakness in the ridge, and they'll follow that down with the trough. All right, so that's what we're looking at here. So we're seeing two things that the system has to counteract. First one, Sunday and Monday, the weakness in the ridge. If it sniffs it out and starts heading there, an upper trough amplifies, grabs it, see you later, out to the graveyard. Monday onwards, if the system hasn't been taken, it then begins adopting a westerly track, slowly at first, and then accelerates as it heads to the coast. The strength of the ridge the ridge is stronger the further west we go, all right, because the ridge is centred. Remember, the ridge is centred back through Queensland. So the further west it goes, the faster it will move. All right, so we've then got a system that is accelerating towards the Queensland coast. If it gets there before the weekend, not happy days if you're on the coast, you're going to get pummeled. But happy days for the cyclone, it'll just make it to the coast and then continue on its merry way, potentially into the NT. If it doesn't make it there by the weekend, then we have a new dilemma to talk about whether or not this trough is going to be strong enough to grab it and yank it southeastwards. All right, so what does the model evidence tell us? If everything I've just told you in some squiggly lines. So let's have a look at the squiggly lines. Hopefully you can make a bit more sense out of the squiggly lines. Firstly, let's have a look here. Probability of a tropical low. So you can see we're very, very clear that there's going to be a low out there. All right, really high probabilities that there's going to be a low, and really high probabilities that's going to happen Sunday into Monday. Where we start to go pear-shaped is Sunday into Monday, because the system may start going this way, sniffing out that weakness in the ridge, or it begins accelerating towards the coast on Tuesday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we see the system coming towards the coast, and Thursday, Friday, we get it pretty much onto the coast. Now, if we don't get it onto the coast by Saturday, we're not going to get it onto the coast, all right? Because from there, upper trough amplifies, tries to grab it and take it out to the graveyard again, all right? So there's a window of opportunity for the cyclone between Monday, if it can get out of that little weakness in the ridge, Monday through to Friday, maybe Saturday. After Saturday, no more. All right, so that's the expectation with regards to motion. Let me show you what the DeepMind modelling is telling us, and you'll see the DeepMind modelling is split as well. Just give me a sec for this to load, and you'll see the really key split here in the model as well. All right. So nothing this week. Forget about this week. We're not seeing any evidence of anything going on this week. So have they not updated the DeepMind? Oh, no, they have. All right, so there's our system, right? I'll just bring this up so you've got a really clear indicator of the timing as well. So there's our system. And here's our system here that's starting to sniff out that ridge, that weakness in the ridge. So you can see here, as we go into Saturday, the system starts to appear. Sunday, the system's appeared fully. And then as we get into Sunday night, see how we've already started to bring it southwards in some of these models? Right, this one's gone. Anything that develops and pushes southwards like that, that'll be gone, all right? And from there, what we're interested in are these ones up here, the ones that haven't sniffed out the weakness. They're too far north of the weakness. From here, these ones are pretty much a guarantee to come onto the coast. All right, so we really need to focus on Sunday, Monday. They are our key time frames, with the weakness in the two ridges, the one from Fiji and the one from Queensland, allowing the system to duck dive to the south, potentially. And if the system doesn't do that, then we can start talking about a coastal impact. And you can see, once the system begins moving west, if it's up in the northern Coral Sea, it'll move west really fast. It'll start moving at the coast at 30 plus kilometres an hour. Like, it will motor. And you can see there that the system could make landfall as early as Wednesday. So we won't know if this whole weakness in the ridge happens until Sunday night, Monday morning. And when we do know, you'll only have a couple of days. If it's going to hit up north, you'll only have a couple of days to prepare. You'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to prepare. All right, 3 days, sorry. And then if the system is pushed down into here, nothing to worry about. All right, what it might do is it might take a little bit of a westerly shift and then duck off to the southeast. It's these ones here that leave us umming and ahhing and scratching our heads, because with these ones up here, the system is starting to move to the west. We can see clear evidence of that, but what we don't see is clear evidence that all of them hit the coast. We see that a lot of them do, but then we see a couple of them starting to stuff around. What day do they start stuffing around? Saturday. What's happening on Saturday? We have that second upper trough, all right, that second weakness in the ridge, and we have that second opportunity to drive that system southeastwards parallel to and then off the coast and then out to sea. So there are our with this system. So anyone spruiking about a coastal impact of a Coral Sea cyclone, they're gibbering. We don't know. We don't know how Sunday, Monday is going to go yet. All right, so I need you to understand the complexity in the forecast. I also need you to understand the intensity of the forecast might be a bit overblown here. I know the purple stuff, when you take a look at the wind speed legend on the left, the purple stuff might definitely, I look at that, and if I didn't know better, I'd be saying Cat 5. But one of the things we know with the new DeepMind models is that they do overdevelop the intensity of tropical cyclones quite significantly. So what we've found is we adjust it by a category or two, and that becomes the probable intensity estimate. Right, so that's what we've found all through this season. Usually about 2 categories below what it thinks is going to hit is usually what hits. With the weak ones, maybe 1 category below. But listen, what I want you to understand is that the environment in the northern Coral Sea becomes quite favourable. So cyclones can intensify quite rapidly up there if it continues to track westwards. Not initially, not in the initial stages, but as it gets closer to the coast, there could be a period of sharp intensification. And I think that out of everything, don't pay too much attention to the overall intensity strike. Just pay attention to the idea that it is intensifying. So those green and yellow dots are turning into orange and red dots. Okay, so what that tells us is that the environment is getting more favourable as it gets closer to the coast. If it gets closer to the coast, because there are still a number that don't get closer to the coast. All right, so that's our scenarios. When we're talking about a coastal impact, we're primarily talking about a coastal impact from Townsville northwards, and you can see there the coastal impact zones are in the far north. You can also see there's also an impact zone down towards New Zealand. All right, so once again, this is why we don't do the squiggly lines this early without an explanation, without a proper explanation. All right, so you need to understand that our first issue is Sunday, Monday. We get through that. Then, if we get through that, then we're watching how fast does it move. If the system starts to really accelerate, then we brace ourselves. All right, so that's the idea at the moment. So we won't know anything more. We won't know anything more until Sunday, until we figure out if this thing's going to be going down into the weakness of the ridge or if it's going to keep going west. We'll have a really good idea Sunday, I reckon. All right, so that's our summary with this particular system. Folks, if you like that summary and you like the science behind it, consider a subscription. This is what we talk about every single day in our subscription service. $32.95 a year, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. And we thank once again our major sponsor, Fair Dinkum Build over there. For their sponsorship. They've been with us now for 5-6 years, a long time. Right, let's take some questions. Okay. Is there going to be a cyclone next week like some charts are saying? Aidan. Yes, mate, there is, but as you saw, it can go anywhere from Lockhart River to New Zealand. So there is, but that's it. That's all we would say right now. Zabinator, what would be awesome is if you buy a subscription, it automatically makes you a member on YouTube. Yeah, I wish we could. But listen, YouTube, you're only getting the iWall Basic membership anyway, mate. So, you know, you're not missing out. Like, by being a member of the website, you're getting more stuff than the YouTube members. But by being a YouTube member, you sort of get a sneak peek without paying $32. You pay $15 and you see if you like it. And then if you do, you can upgrade to the website membership and send us an email so we can reimburse you some money for the $15 you spent. Yeah. Humpty Doo NT, says Jeff. Yeah, some heavy rain through Humpty Doo. Yeah, and look, as we just discussed there, plenty more rain for the NT coming. So good to have you with us, Jeff. Not too many folks from the NT come into these. Cheryl Lee, hello, Nisto. Hello, Cheryl Lee. Nitto, by the way, but Nisto, just don't call me bad words. Dan, evening, Nitso from Doogaled River. Hey, Dan, hopefully not too much rain there. I think there was actually, looking at that 7-day chart, wasn't there? There was quite a bit of rain out at Doogaled River Way. Doogaled River, Cloncurry. It'll be up here somewhere, won't it? Probably about 50 to 100 mils there. Yeah, and probably a bit more to come. Sorry, let's bring that back again. Probably a bit more to come, mate, to be honest. There's a fair bit of rain and storm activity in the Gulf. Some of that might sort of come down into the Doogaled River Way. It won't be as heavy as it was last time. Aidan, is there going to be a cyclone next week? Yes, Aidan. I'm sure I've already explained that one. All right. Stephen. Oh, he must have written this question twice. Stephen, hey Nitso, welcome. Hope you get new subscribers with your service. Thanks, Steve. So do we, mate. I think we're a great weather service, and I think we're a great value for money. So I hope so. But thank you. Aaron, best summer in 10 years in North Queensland. Yeah, it's been not just North Queensland, man. It's been big everywhere. Zabinator, make sure you click the likes. Yeah, so if you're on YouTube, you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, eh? So that way we get some expose of the algorithm. Hey, listen, if you hate it, hit the unlike button. I don't give a shit. It just gets the algorithm going. So, man, hit whatever button you want. Just hit a button. That'll be great. Right, Jace, was some good rainfall finally around Emerald, mate. Fairburn Dam to 33%. That's awesome, Jace. Yeah, I think it was about 10-15. Hopefully there's some more inflows there. Hopefully we'll get that up over 33%. So I'm hoping that, you know, because there was widespread rain, so maybe it might take a couple of days to get into the dam. So fingers crossed. Do the H marks on the map indicate a high pressure system, and does an H have an influence on the L? No, Liam. In that chart that we looked at, so this chart, when we got an H there, that just means it's a localised area of high pressure and at the surface only. Remember, cyclones are not driven by surface pressure systems. They're driven by systems that are operating in the atmosphere from about 3-ish kilometres to about 10, 11 kilometres up. So that's what drives systems. So don't look at a surface weather map. Highs at the surface have no impact whatsoever. Lows at the surface have no impact whatsoever on the system. Now, the only exception to that would be if there's two lows close to each other, they do have an impact on each other because they'll sort of try and rotate and dance around each other. So they don't, yeah, so that would be the only time that a surface system would have an impact on the cyclone itself. All right. But yeah, you won't see that on a weather map. Anything that you see on your, you know, your weather map, your basic MSLP precip or your just this isobaric chart, don't pay attention to that because it doesn't have any impact on the cyclone. Awesome, Nitso. You make everything make sense, says Cindy. Thanks, Cindy, hopefully. Thanks, Nitso. Voice of reason again, says Stacey. Thank you, Stacey. Scott, legend Nitso, better than the Cat 5 idiots posting dumb shit all over Facebook. That's why I've done these this year, mate. I've done these this year for that exact reason, because I know there's going to be bullshit out there telling you Cat 5s are going to hit everywhere from the Cape to Brisbane to New Zealand. So hopefully, if we can... Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that we can't see a Cat 5. Hey, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we don't know enough. We don't know enough. We don't know enough to be jumping the gun and warning the whole coastline from Lockhart River to Mackay about a possible Cat 5, and the whole North Island in New Zealand about a possible X-cyclone. You know, like, we just don't know. There's too much complexity. Brilliantly explained. Thanks, Nitzo. Well worth subscribing. Thanks, Yardo. Thanks very much for your recommendation, mate. Thanks for joining us again. It'll be interesting to see what model will be correct. AI's been smashing the physics-based models this season. Yeah, it has. But even AI's not correct here. AI's all over the shop too. Don't think for 1 second that AI's given us any real indicators about where this is going, Dolphin. So there's a lot of AI that's pushing this down to the south. As you just see, there's a lot of purple on this chart down south. And there's also a lot of purple up north. So the AI is just as split. If anything, the AI sort of picked up the complexity a little better of the two reasons why we see the split, the two upper troughs. But I'm not saying AI is our saviour in this one. This one's pretty tough. And AI is having a 50 cents each way. Hi, Netso Jace here. So Mackay's having some showers now on Sunday. Does that mean that there will be a bit of moisture in the atmosphere? No, Densey. There's not much moisture in the atmosphere for Mackay. If we take a look, I don't expect to see much for the Mackay area, mate. Mackay's getting a second little burst of showers. I think that's what you might be talking about. So if we look at Mackay, it should be mostly fine through Mackay. Listen, the Whitsundays might see a couple of showers, but yeah, pretty much mostly fine through the Mackay area, mate. Here's that little burst. That's the burst. See that there coming up the coast? So it starts around southeast Queensland on Friday. What's going on here? All right, so it starts around southeast Queensland Friday night, and then it comes up the coastline. It charges up the coastline. It's just a bit of a southeasterly burst of showers. So you can see it goes up through the Wide Bay on Saturday, and then up through the Capricornia Saturday Ave, and then it comes up to Mackay overnight Sunday night, overnight Saturday night, Sunday morning. So there's a bit of a showers on Sunday, but it's not really a continuation thing. It's just one little burst of showers, mate. So don't go in there thinking Mackay's in there for a shellacking or anything like that. Just a few showers there on Sunday, and maybe a couple of isolated showers on the coastal ranges in the afternoons. So have your full subscription for many years. Much appreciated. Thanks, Marilyn. We appreciate you too, and everyone who subscribes to us, and for your support and ongoing support. That's awesome. Jace, yep, we've done that one. Just remembered something that's been bugging me. Those cyclone activity charts. Why is the cyclone one used for lows and the lows used for cyclones? Matt, that's a good question. Hey, Matt, in meteorology, we call all lows cyclones. We call tropical lows tropical cyclones. And then this is where it gets tricky, but we don't officially call them that until they've got themselves a name. All right. So, and usually when they call them a tropical cyclone, there's sort of different names around the world for it. So we've got tropical storms is usually what they refer to Cat 1s and Cat 2s, or Cat 1s and low-end Cat 2s. And then tropical cyclones or severe cyclones or hurricanes is what they refer to the Cat 2 pluses. It's just an absolute schmozzle all around the world, mate. They've got to come up with one. They'll never do it because too many egos, but they've got to come up with one scientific determination for what a tropical cyclone is worldwide, but they'll never do it because egos everywhere. Plus, then you got to rewrite the record books. It's just too hard. So they're just going to do it. They're just going to do it what they've always done, mate. But yeah. So when we're talking about, I've got a itchy nose. When we're talking about this chart, I think this is the chart you're talking about, isn't it? Let me find it. Give me a sec. So it's the cyclones chart, and I think it's this chart here, probability of a tropical low, and they actually call it tropical cyclone activity, and tropical cyclones as the intensity. So what that's telling you is that what is the probability of a tropical low? The word cyclone in meteorology means low, all right? So tropical low. And then here, the probability of a tropical cyclone is the intensity of a tropical storm, i.e. Cat 1, Cat 2 or greater. All right, so you can see there that we've got about a 10% risk of a tropical cyclone, of tropical storm strength coming onto the coast at the moment. I dare say that'll increase over time as the models pick up on it. But yeah, so I understand what you mean, though. That is a little bit confusing, isn't it? When we're talking about lows, we call them tropical cyclones. When we're talking about tropical cyclones, we're calling them tropical storms. It is a little confusing. One of those silly things meteorologists have done just to make life difficult. This is what happens when you leave scientists in charge of everything. Love the how and why that all these other pretenders can't make sense of. I bet they all watch this, then update their own predictions. Hey, listen, we've got members that have their own pages that are members of ours. And listen, if we can spread the word and get proper education out there and those folks make their pages better, we're not gonna, absolutely. As I know, we've got plenty of pages, a couple of really big ones that have done it on the down low and think we don't know, that have got a subscription to our service, right? And they often update their own stuff afterwards. But hey, listen, I don't mind that because A, it means they're paying attention. B, it means they're trying to be as socially responsible as they can be, even after their bullshit at the start. But you know, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that they're actually paying attention and going, oh, hang on, maybe my prediction of a Cat 5 hitting Cairns, maybe I need to just change that up a bit. So look, I don't mind if other pages subscribe to our service and then, you know, update their knowledge and get better at what they do because of that. That's fine. That's perfect. That's the way science should work. We should be able to spread that knowledge out. Thanks, Steve. Steve Fanias, so 50-50 chance of a cyclone by next Wednesday, but we will not know for sure until around Sunday, Monday. Oh, Steve, I reckon there's a great chance of a tropical cyclone somewhere out there. I think the chance is a bit more than 50-50. But where it goes, we won't know, you're right, until Sunday, Monday. All right? Yeah. You've summed it up pretty well there. But I'd say the only thing I'd challenge you on is 50-50 chance of a cyclone. So I reckon there's a better chance that there'll be a cyclone. We just don't know where. And probably if there is going to be a cyclone, probably next Wednesday it'll be named. You're right. Yeah. So everything there, I agree with you. But I just think that 50-50 chance is probably a little bit more around the 70-80% chance. All right. Tanya, well worth it every year. Thanks, Nitso. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being a subscriber. Awesome, Nitso. You make everything make sense. Thanks, Cindy. We've done these ones. What's the outlook in Catherine NT? Yeah, Dan, let's go to Catherine quickly and let's have a look at Catherine. Yeah, some problems there, mate. We've still got some pretty big rain for Catherine, unfortunately. So the key here for Catherine is going to be, do you find yourself on the western side of the circulation and how long for? And then do you find yourself in the northwestern side of the circulation and how long for? So you can see the circulations between Jabba and Catherine right now, right? So the idea is you're finding yourself on the western edge of the circulation. If you look at where the rain's falling in this, you can see it's the western side of the circulation that's copping a battering. This western side was up around Darwin yesterday. And there was a couple of 100 mils that fell just inland of Darwin there yesterday. So when you find yourself on that western side, you're finding yourself in that powerful convective area where we're getting dry air from the south and moist air from the west coming together, getting squeezed on that western side. So unfortunately, it looks as though you're going to be there for at least tonight. You're going to be in that little spot for at least tonight, so expect to see some heavier rainfall continuing tonight. I just got to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Yeah, you are. That's good. Yeah. All right. So you're definitely going to be in that spot tonight. And look, as we go into tomorrow, what we're hoping there is it begins just to duck a touch west. So the moment it ducks a touch west of you, if we take a look at who's getting the rain, see how the rain ducks southwest to Catherine at that stage? So it's on the southwestern side of the circulation is where we see most of the rain. So the moment that thing ducks a little bit to your west, and that'll probably happen Fingers crossed. This thing's been a slippery bugger because it's been very weak, right? When they're very weak, they're very slippery. They do things we don't anticipate. But we do think that it'll probably move that heavier rainfall just to the west and south of Katherine tomorrow. So you got to get through tonight. Then the heavy falls shift just to your west and south. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not a hydrologist, so I don't know where your river systems go. So I don't know if all the shit ton of rain that they're going to get is going to come straight over the top of Katherine. I'm not sure because as I say, I don't study the river systems. But you do need to be aware there's going to be some heavy rainfall to the west and south tomorrow. Then as we go into Thursday, we can see that pushing a little bit further west and south. Now, if we take a look at where our low is on Thursday, we can see that it's pushed a little further westwards down into the Northern Gregory district, right? But what it starts to do, and this is a problem for Katherine again, what it starts to do here is it starts to excite the atmosphere because it gets a little closer to the coast. As it gets a little closer to the coast, it just sparks up a little bit. It just spruiks up a little bit after being through the inland areas for that long. And so what we're seeing here, mate, is just that increase in wind flow, that increase in westerly flow, and then potentially a little bit of an increase in squeeze. And if you take a look at where Katherine is in relation to that, you can see that this westerly flow is quite strong through Katherine, and there's a chance there that if the low intensifies to any degree, we may see a period here where the rain redevelops over the top of Katherine as we go into Friday, and then potentially into Saturday as well, while the low's still mucking around here. After that point, we're anticipating a return to showers and isolated thunderstorms, but not necessarily over Katherine, more so in the Darwin-Daly district. All right, so that's the expectation there, mate. But listen, there's still some serious rain to come, but we think the heaviest will be west and south of you at this stage if the cyclone does what it's supposed to do. All right, so if the low does what it's supposed to do, and that is track to your west and then southwest, it means that you'll be spared the worst of it over Katherine. But then, as I said to you, mate, I'm not a hydrologist, so I don't know if heavy rain in here is going to come straight over the top of the town. All right, so that I can't explain to you because I'm not familiar with that. Hydrology is not my area. All right. Geordie Booth, best weather service for sure. Well worth it. Nitzo's a top bloke. No bullshit at all. Thanks, Nitzo. No worries, Geordie. I'll try and keep the bullshit out of it. Sometimes I get emotional. I do get emotional. I do go on a rant sometimes. But I try and stay professional as much as I can. Despite the fact that I only wear singlets to these things. So we've talked about Katherine. Cairns looking forward to some rain. Yeah, Wayne, listen, Cairns is looking forward to some rain, mate, but just be aware that the heaviest of the rain isn't over Cairns. All right, so we're not anticipating the heaviest falls over Cairns this week. We're going to see the heaviest falls on the real wet tropics, the areas with the big mountain ranges. So Tully, maybe Ingham, Cardwell, Innisfail, Babinda, those areas that have got the big mountain ranges in behind them, they're the ones, and up on the Daintree too, further, they're not going to like that, but further big falls up around the Daintree this coming week as well. So, yeah, so you can see there, Cairns still getting, I'm not saying you're not getting much, that's still a substantial amount of rain, but you're just not going to get the best of it there in Cairns, or the worst of it in Cairns. We're probably looking a little south and a little north of you for that. And if we take a look at maybe something a bit higher res that doesn't smooth everything over, yeah, that's a good example there. Do you see that? So I'll just change the opacity there. So here we go. We got 3 to 4, even up to 4 to 5 on the Daintree, and you can see Cairns 1 to 2. All right, so I'm not bullshitting. That's not rubbish rain, but I'm just saying that just don't go in expecting the sort of stuff you might get on the big mountain areas. All right, so, and not only that, but then you look at your orientation of the coastline. A lot of these showers are going to be coming in from the southeast, and so this section of the coast is really open to that. Your section between Cairns and Port Douglas, not quite as open to that. So a few factors there as to why Cairns and also the tablelands, not expecting, certainly the tablelands will be expecting less than Cairns, but Cairns itself probably not expecting the level that we'll see south of Babinda and also north of Port Douglas. Okay, mate? But yeah, plenty of rain coming for this area. 4 weeks to the end of the wet season, and the nights are starting to get cooler, down to 17 and 16 at night. Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah, okay, Craig. That's pretty cool already. Andrew, hey, Nitso, if the cyclone starts moving west, what is the moisture chart looking like for intensification? Yeah, not great to start with. So that's a good question there, Andrew. Andrew obviously knows his stuff, asking me a question like that. So if we do take a look at some of our moisture charts for out here in the Coral Sea, and when we're looking at moisture, folks, for a tropical cyclone, we don't look near... Same thing as when we're looking for which way a cyclone's going to move. We don't look near the surface because that has bugger all reason, bugger all to do with the moisture availability for a cyclone. Obviously, we want the surface to be moist, but we know that the heat engine of the cyclone can lift a lot of moisture from the ocean into itself. So, you know, the surface moisture isn't an issue. What is an issue is the amount of moisture that we have from about 3 or 4 kilometres up through to about 7 or 8 kilometres up in the atmosphere. Because if we have heaps of moisture at those levels of the atmosphere, we're able to sustain the convection. So cyclones need to have storms that don't just die. They can't just be like land storms where they die in the morning and then they grow in the afternoons, opposite in the waters. So the idea here is that we need to be able to sustain that convection. And what we can see is that as this low pushes into the Coral Sea, this is ugly. You can see that there's all this red shading here. That tells us that there's a lot of dry air. And that's why, as the cyclone, if the cyclone doesn't go southeast, it doesn't really start to intensify on the way west until after this dry air starts to bugger off. So you can see that we start to lose that dry air on probably Friday and only just in the northern Coral Sea. And we're seeing that evidenced in quite a number of other models. So not in that one, but we do see evidence of that in this one, where we do start to moisten the northern Coral Sea atmosphere. But dry air could certainly be an issue all the way west. And in fact, in a lot of the models that don't intensify the system, dry air is the culprit, that it doesn't get enough moisture in. Because remember, we're not attached to a very strong monsoon, and we've got that mid-level ridge. A mid-level ridge breeds a lot of stable and dry air, pushing that through the Coral Sea. So yes, the ridge is going to try and pull the cyclone to the coast, but it's also going to try and bring a lot of dry and stable air into the Coral Sea. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword about what the ridge can do. And so it's a good question you ask, Andrew. The moisture profile in the Coral Sea isn't the best, and it could be a fairly significant limiting factor in the overall intensity if the cyclone did adopt a westerly track. We'll keep an eye on that. Pat, can we get Weather IQ singlets? I'll have a look. I'll have a look how much spare time I'll get in the off season. We'll create something, a singlet or a muscle tee or something. Hey Nitso, good evening from the Whitsunday region, and was nice rainfall in the last 7 days. Yeah, not much to come for the Whitsundays, Jesse. The Whitsundays has had really good rain. If you remember this chart I showed you. There was some really big rain in the Whitsundays the last little while. You can see over the last week we've had 200 to 400 millimetres in the Whitsundays. A little bit less right on the coast, but a little bit more towards the 300 to 400 inland of the coast. So really good rain there for the Whitsundays, for the Whitsunday mainland especially. Right, now for what's coming for you, not much. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the cyclone next week, but assuming that doesn't hit the coast, we wouldn't be expecting much. Let's have a quick look. All right, for the Whitsundays, we can see here, Jesse, there's a little bit of shower activity possible tomorrow, but we're talking isolated showers here, not the scattered stuff. We even had quite a few scattered showers today. won't be having that tomorrow. It'll just be a very isolated shower. You can see a nice little heavy shower around Collinsville actually right now. The expectation then is no major shower activity expected for the region until this time here. See this little burst of showers that comes through Mackay on Sunday morning? So the Whitsundays will cop that late Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon. So that'll be a little burst of showers that you'll get, and then that'll bugger off just as quick as it arrived. All right, so just a little 6-hour period there of heavier showers coming through the Whitsundays, and then not much more after that, mate. Jermaine, are they saying Cat 5 for Cairns? And look, they have a 1 in 100 chance to be right, man. I'm not going to rubbish it because I can see the possibility, right? It's a possibility. Just like if they said X cyclone about to hit the North Island, New Zealand, they won't say that because it's not clickbait. But if they said that, that's a possibility too. So, you know, I'm not going to rubbish it because there is a small chance of that. It's a small chance, and I certainly wouldn't be headlining with that, being a little bit more socially responsible. But could I just turn around and just laugh at them and say, you're full of shit? Probably not, because there is a very, very small chance of that happening. It's all about conveying the information in a socially responsible way. Like I showed you the same charts that they're showing you with the Cat 5s, but I also explained to you one of the limitations with this model suit. And one of the limitations, as we talked about, was that it overdevelops tropical cyclones ahead of time. Once they're developed, it does a good job, but it overdevelops pre-cyclone initiation or pre-cyclogenesis. It really overdevelops the systems, okay? Once they develop, it realises the environment, it realises the circulation, and it actually does a good job with intensity. But when we're looking at a figment of modelling imagination, this one runs wild with its imagination when it comes to intensity of the systems. And it's been a constant and consistent criticism of the new range of AI modelling from Google. I'm not saying it's not a good model. It's a fantastic model, and it has served us very well in the time frame, but it hasn't served us well when it comes to intensity before a system is formed. The amount of times it's showing up false alarms for Cat 5s that end up being Cat 1s or tropical lows. And as we just discussed, this low doesn't have the best environment on the way west. It does have an improving environment, but not the best environment. It needs a best environment to be able to get from nothing to Cat 5 on this section of coastline, especially if it starts to accelerate. And it's not going to have that. I don't see a situation where it has the best possible environment on the way westwards. So to say that a Cat 5 is going to hit Cairns, it's pretty socially irresponsible. Lucy. Oh, did you... Oh, have we got a YouTube? What's the name? Have we got a YouTube? Oh wow! Holy crap! Wow, Zabinator, that's awesome. Thank you. We've got a few. I don't know if you can see them there, but we've got a few. Yeah, we got a few. What's the names? Super chats. That's awesome. Thanks, Zabinator. Thanks, Luce. Dolphin, good on you, mate. I think Dolphin just wants me to put a shirt on. So he's shouting me enough money to buy a shirt from Kmart or something. Lucy. Hey, listen, guys and girls, thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you very much for your donations there. But as I say, if you really really passionate about the weather, you know, you can always buy someone a subscription. That way you can get, you know, that $30 you could sort of spend on and help to better someone else's knowledge, you know, like by being a subscriber. But listen, I thank you so much for your support, and make sure that you ask a question too. Don't just send us money. Make sure you get at least some value for your questions. But yeah, thank you so much for those of you that did that. That's awesome. All right, let's get back into the questions. Sheila, Bro, spreading that knowledge is great. The fact they are using you as a guide just shows how good you are, mate. Thanks, Jermaine. Thanks, mate. As I say, I'd never want to gatekeep that knowledge, you know, like that's the whole point. I think we'd all be a lot better off if we shared knowledge with each other, not tried to gatekeep it all. Marilyn Ramsey, if the low comes to eastern Queensland, will there be another tut? Oh, that thing was the bane of my existence, wasn't it, the tut? I don't think so, Marilyn. I think what we're seeing here is just a pretty clear-cut low. If it comes west, let's have a look. It's a good question you ask because I haven't looked that far ahead. I don't think we're seeing any sort of upper troughing in that time frame. So if we go up to the 300s, let's have a look here. So look at that big ridge. Geez, that's a big sucker. It starts over here and ends up over the eastern Coral Sea. That's why if the cyclone doesn't sniff out the weakness in the ridge in the eastern Coral Sea, we're pretty confident it's just going to come west and hit the coast, right? And you can see that. Look at that. Wow, that's a big ridge in the upper levels of the atmosphere. But your question about a tut. No, what we're seeing there is evidence of the low actually getting up to the 300 hectopascal level, but no evidence that there's a upper trough. Oh, no, Marilyn, you're going to hate me. There's a little bit of evidence there that there might be an upper trough to the north of it. Yes, there is. Shit. Sorry, Marilyn. I didn't even think to check this before I answered you. I should have checked it before I answered you. Yeah, mate. You can see again the low's coming west and the rain is on the northern side of the low. Oh my God! Surely not. Surely we can't have two the same. All right, well, there we go. So we're seeing evidence there that perhaps there is going to be a tropical trough above it at the 300 and 500 hectopascal level. Goodness me, again. Yeah, so there's our 500 low, but there's a trough that's attached to that low. See that up here in the northern part of your screen, Marilyn? Yeah, that's going to be disappointing because I think in all these setups, what we do expect is we expect the southern part to get all the rain, right? In this setup, once again, we're going to see the northern part getting the rain. Ugh. I tell you what, I've never seen two tuts in two systems, in consecutive systems over the Coral Sea. And Marilyn, it goes, then we start talking about how the hell are we going to get to Cat 5 if we got a tut next to the system? And then once again, remember, tuts can work both ways. So the tut can make a system stronger if it develops underneath the tut. So it can make, on the southern edge of the tut, it can really enhance the cyclone. But if the tut moves faster than the cyclone, or the cyclone moves faster than the tut, it will weaken the cyclone. So it's... Well, the fact that we've just discovered that there's another freaking tut is another reason why you don't want to be spruiking Cat 5s over Cairns. All right, it's clearly it's going to have a 1 in 100 chance of being a Cat 5 over Cairns in that setup. Right, you're going to need the tut to be as nailing it as possible. Yeah, that's... Wow, great question, Marilyn, because I genuinely hadn't gone that far to look at, what if it gets to the coast. But that's a great question, mate. Well done. Thank you. That's opened my eyes to the change in structure as well there. Good on you, mate. Dan, nah, that side won't affect the town. Very informative as always, says Paula. Thank you. Thanks, Paula. Lucy, pair character looking himself in the mirror saying, thanks for being you with your hearts popping out of his eye. Thanks, Lucy. When will these showers be coming, says Simon. I'm not sure where you are, Simon. You're going to have to elaborate, bud. Northern Australia is a big place, and we cover a big place of it. Evening, it's evening, hippie. All right, I think that's it. Have I missed anyone's questions? Let me just... I've got two different chats going here, so I'm just going to make sure... Been 20 years next week since Larry. Oh, Larry was a beast, wasn't it? That's what we got to do in the off season, I reckon, Brad. To keep these interactions going, maybe once a week, we might go down memory lane. Maybe some of Weather IQ's chases. Maybe we talk about some of the old time cyclones. Maybe get some people to join me on live and talk about their experiences with the cyclone, something like that. I reckon that could be something good we could do over the dry season, just to sort of keep the page ticking along and keep people interested. And Larry, there'd be some friggin' amazing stories. Yeah, some friggin' amazing stories from Larry, I reckon, from the Innisfail crowd. Very small system, but God, it was strong. And even from, I think the Tablelands copped pretty bad too. Like it kept going inland into the Tablelands up towards Ravenshoe and that sort of area. They got smashed out of it as well. Oh no, we do have some more questions. Sorry, I didn't see these. Very informative. How about Winton? Leslie Large. How about Winton? Mate, I'm not seeing any major weather for them. Not in the next, I think, what days? I think this Saturday, Sunday. We've got some storm activity coming out that way, I think. Yeah, just in here. So on Saturday and on Sunday, we've got just a bit of moisture, just starting to push down towards Bullia. And then Winton's probably on the eastern edge of all this. So at this stage, mate, just the far western edge of the state would be where I'd be tipping that. Let me just make sure I've got my wits about me about where Winton is. Yeah, no, Winton's a little too far out, mate, too far east. So where we're going to see a lot of our rainfall is going to be, more so, I think Bullia's west of you. So, might sort of get to Bullia, but not Winton. Winton at this stage probably too far east at the moment, mate. So nothing there that I'm seeing on the radar for you. Matt Davis, what's the difference between a tut and a regular trough? A tut is a trough in the upper atmosphere. It's what we call a tropical upper tropospheric trough, and it forms in the deep tropics, and it usually forms and tracks, usually, as most tropical systems do in the upper levels, east to west, opposite to west to east, which is what our mid-level troughs do, our mid-latitude troughs do. They track west to east. Our tuts usually will track east to west due to the circulation pattern, or the circulation of the atmosphere, the general circulation of the atmosphere in the tropics. All right, so tuts will move east to west. Normal upper troughs, the subtropical upper troughs, or extratropical troughs, or the mid-latitude troughs, they'll track west to east because that's the prevailing winds in the upper levels there, and the prevailing winds in the upper levels up here tend to be easterlies. So that's the difference, mate, the way they travel. Upper troughs from the south move west to east. Upper troughs in the north move east to west, or in the tropics, not necessarily the north, because same applies up there in the northern hemisphere. Thanks, Nitso and Views, with great questions. Been a great informative report tonight. Thanks, Fee. Thanks for tuning in. Any more coming for Mackay? No, Samantha. Sunday. Remember, we're getting a little burst of showers for Mackay on Sunday. Matt, I would pay extra money for off-season content. No, it won't be for extra money, mate. But I wouldn't mind doing a little memory lane thing where we talk about some noteworthy cyclones in the past. That'd be nice. It would be good for you to do a series showing the environmental setup like you have done for this low tonight for the old cyclones. Oh yeah, so like case studies. Yeah, we could. It's just very time consuming to get the charts. And remember that back when Larry was around, we didn't really have great charts and we didn't really have great models back then. Although they were still okay in the 2010s, and Larry was 2007, 2008, 2006, wasn't it, Larry? 20 years. Yeah, so back then the models weren't as good as they are now, and we didn't have as much detail through different levels of the atmosphere that we do now. But yeah, so it just might be challenging digging up the right charts to show those things. Zabinator, what time do I start work in the morning? Usually about 4. 4 in the morning is when I get up. I usually do I have a little ritual in the mornings, about 10, 15 minutes of, just waking up. I try and not touch my phone, wake up, a bit of a it's like a little, it's going to sound corny, but a little bit of a mantra about what I'm thankful about. And then I start to get into my phone. My first coffee about 4:30, and then at the same time I start looking at the weather maps. Yeah, so that's usually the start, and then I knock off about midday, just after midday, and I try and have the afternoon to myself. That's when I go to the gym, I walk the dog, I do all my things for the day, and then I come back here in the evening and do the last couple of hours with you guys or with the subscribers. Sometimes I just won't get through all my videos in time till lunchtime, and I just got to step away for a bit and then come back and finish some of the more important ones in the afternoon. How come we've struggled to forecast ridge strengths? Yeah, it's a good question, mate. It is a good question, and I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. A lot of the time with ridges, it's because they're so subtle. They're subtle. The orientation. If we think they're going to be aligned east-west and they're suddenly aligned northeast, southwest, that's a real subtle thing, but it can change the dynamics of the steer fairly significantly. We think that they're going to be positioned over Fiji, but instead they're positioned over Vanuatu. Once again, the centre position, that becomes a problem, and it's such a subtle thing. With an upper trough, it's so clear and obvious, well ahead of time. With an upper ridge, yeah, it's difficult, mate. It's really challenging. Upper ridges they're going to be something I think we're going to be struggling with for a long time. I don't see even AI, I think, struggles with them. We've seen AI struggle with the tropical cyclone Mitchell. Mitchell was a really good example, the one that hit WA just a month or so ago. That was a really good example of everyone struggling with the ridges. We had the numerical weather prediction models, the Bureau's model, the Euro model, all telling us that this thing was going to miss the coast and head out to the Southeast Indian Ocean version of the graveyard. And then we had the AI models that didn't want a ridge there at all and kept hitting Port Hedland. And in the end, we had a system that basically grazed Exmouth and then came around the Northwest Cape. So they were both shit. Both the physics-based models were shit and the AI models were shit in that one. And it all came down to the ridge strength, right? So that's a really good example that we're not there yet. And even with the AI technology, we're just not there yet. We're not there at picking up the strength of ridges. And that's why I can show you 5 days out a cyclone that's hitting New Zealand and 7 days out, cyclone that's hitting New Zealand and a cyclone that's hitting Cairns, because we can't get that stuff right yet. We don't have the technology to get that stuff right yet. It's a good question, mate, and it's not something I see an answer to anytime soon. Amy, missed most of the live. Is Mareeba in for a lot of rain? Look, Mareeba itself, probably not. Are they in for some showers and thunderstorms? Yeah, absolutely. But for a lot of rain? No, not the same sort of level that we're talking about with the coast, all right? So with Mareeba, over the next few days, that's too far. Over the next few days, we're anticipating a few showers and thunderstorms. You can see there, 30 to 40 mils. Atherton maybe a little bit more than Mareeba just because they might get an extra storm or two, maybe an extra shower coming in off the coast as well. But with Mareeba, you're in a rain shadow area, right? So every time we're going to get that coastal stuff, you're not going to see much of that. You're going to see maybe a bit of drizzle come out of that. All right, so Mareeba's got a very sharp rain shadow here because you've got massive mountains between Innisfail and Cairns that just block everything coming into Mareeba from the southeast. Atherton, you still got massive mountains, but at least some of it gets through into sort of Malanda, Millamilla anyway, maybe not so much Atherton. So for Mareeba, I wouldn't be expecting to see too much there. But will you get showers and thunderstorms? Absolutely. All right, but will you get any of the heavy rain that we're anticipating here? Probably not. And the rainfall here, by the way, is being way underrepresented on the model. I don't like using that model for that rainfall. Yeah, that's a better example. So there's Mareeba, about 30 to 50 mils, right? And there's the coastline, 200 to 400 mils. All right, so that's the sort of thing we're dealing with in Mareeba. Where's your dog? Bring it on as a guest. I'll have to remember to bring Foxy. Foxy loves her storms, actually. She's one of those dogs that hates. She's a strange dog. She's a little Jack Russell. She's very old now. She's about nine and a half. Actually, no, she might be 10 shortly. No, she'll be 10 soon. So she's 9.5. But she loves storms. Hates the sprinkler. Hates water. Loves storms. So the storms come and she just gets so excited. So I think she's taken that from me. But yeah, it's just so strange because if we're walking, because we often walk about 6 p.m. and for those that know Townsville, you know that you're allowed to use your sprinklers after 6 p.m. for an hour or whatever the hell the thing is. So yeah, we usually walk around 6 p.m. And so she's just such a strange dog because she just, the moment the sprinklers come on, she just gets so skittish, yet she'll be out in the storm and she'll be out enjoying the rain. She's such a strange dog. I'd like to say it's old age, but she's been like that since she was like 2 years old. Anyway, you can see me, I light up. I love my little pooch. She's amazing. Yeah. All right, folks, thanks very much. Thanks very much for tuning in tonight. Just remember, if you'd like to support us, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe, and we've got subscriptions there for $32.95. Listen, I'll be back with you in 3 nights' time, Friday night. I don't know. I'll try and do it. I'll do it again Friday night, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to give you too much more value Friday night because we're still not at that time, that Sunday night period where we just don't know if that low is going to duck to the south or move to the west. We just don't know at that stage. I don't know if we're going to know by Friday night either. But anyway, we'll revisit what we talked about tonight, Friday night, see if we got a bit more clarity. I think the big night is going to be the Monday night one afterwards, all right? That one there is going to be, we'll either be saying, let's brace ourselves, or we'll be saying, nothing to see here, a whole week of fine weather coming. All right? Thanks for watching tonight. We'll talk again soon. Friday night.